I am here with Lynn Rose, a dear, dear friend of mine, an incredibly talented woman, award-winning media and entertainment entrepreneur, a business consultant, and the CEO and founder of Wow Maker. Can you tell us what Wow Maker is? Oh, first of all, welcome, Lynn.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm so blessed to be here with you, Anne. I just so love and adore who you are and how
Thank
you
you.
roll through life. And I love what you're doing here with this series.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Wow Maker is positive social media all-in-one hub for activating positive change or for designed to drive positive change. We're in a time right now where we really need to shift the environment going on out there in the world and certainly in social media that has shaped our world. And so this is a proactive solution to give a safe space and positive space of social media, no shaming, blaming, bullying, or division, and integrate throughout the platform the solutions that people are hungry for and so need in their lives with trusted recommended resources. And we have innovations that help monetize in new ways so that people don't have to have ads in their face or deal with manipulative algorithms, and everybody can have a piece of the platform. It's really a platform for the people and a platform that cares. And how can we come together to better our own lives, each other's lives, and the world, and do so in a positive, safe space in social media? So that's the short answer of
So
what
how in the
WowMaker is,
world?
or long answer.
You're an incredible vocalist. So
Yeah.
today we're going to talk about something really important. And you're my grand finale speaker. I do have a bonus
Oh.
speaker, but this topic is so important that I wanted it to bring home my 21 days. And so
Hmm.
we're really talking about how much control we have over what we create in our lives. And we're talking about who we get to become. And that's really what our life is about, is who do we get to become on the way to these goals, these dreams, these serving opportunities? So do you want to speak on that? Because this is your forte.
Thank you. Well, as we were talking about, what we could, different things we could talk about, one of the things that I'm so just lights me up and to me brings home the metaphor for what, how we are, who we are, how we show up, what we create, how we manifest in life, and how we can actually be at the driving wheel of our life. I mean, I think it's kind of a co-creation, so I want to just kind of share that piece. But and we talked about what I call the wow effect. And of course, wow is part of my brand. My speaking, I used to have a speaking inside out from speaking approach called the wow factor. And, Wow Maker is the social media platform that, positive social media platform that's an all in one engine for positive change that's coming out. But wow is an acronym, WOW, for without walls. Without walls, because what's possible when we can dissolve the barriers to our connection and let the full essence of who we are come forward, or connect who we are, truly connect to our purpose, each other, if you're on stage, to an audience, to truly allow that full potential and that full possibility.
To connect really with
And
all that is, all that we know
right.
and all that we don't even know. And some people say God, some people say the quantum field, but we all know what we're talking about. We we pick different words to describe it in our own way, and it's really indescribable. But what we're
Mm.
talking about here is we're not talking about doing it ourselves. We're talking about connecting up with all that's available. Is that what we're talking about, Lynn?
I love that you said that. Yes, that's the ultimate, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
If you're connecting to the moment, which is connecting to God, which is connecting to your higher self, which is God, because, well, or whatever your definition is, who are listening, there's many ways we might want to define it. But what I think is helpful, like we can go to a scientific way to show what's happening at the
Yeah, that's great.
smallest particle of life, of which means in everything, because all of life is from the smallest particle, is this commonality. And when we see the power of that, and then we can apply that to our own lives in this understanding, that's giving power to yourself. And what I mean that is our power to understand that we are able to shift our mindset. And as we do, we can shift how life shows up or how we show up, and then how that impacts. So we'll say more about it
Yeah,
as
so
we show.
you have Trev Blake did this too. He kind of pulled that into the quantum physics realm because he said you know, his base is in science, but he feels that spirituality, spirit feels the spirit there. And he loves that he can see it in a proven thing. Okay, so you're going to demonstrate something for us here,
Yes, yay.
which I love.
What
As
they're
a
about,
teacher, I love demonstrations. I like when people take the time to
yeah.
break up a conversation.
And I'll just invite anyone watching, and of course you've seen this before, but anyone watching to connect your own dots and or the dots you've connected before if you've seen this to take them even deeper. And we'll give a little metaphor as to how that is a metaphor for life, what that means. But let's just share with you what this is. So what I'm about to show is literally a raw video. It's not been touched. There's many videos out there about cymatics, which is what I'm about to show. But then they kind of have some, extra doodads and how people have beefed it up. This is just raw at its rawest form. And what this is a black metal plate with white sand particles on it. And underneath is a speaker, not even touching it, but there's a speaker that has a tone that comes through that speaker from underneath this black plate. And then they just, let the tones go higher and higher, and you'll see what happens. Okay, so I'll just talk through it as we share. So here we go. Okay, so there's the sand. I may jump ahead in it just for time, but it's just a tone. Nothing is touching it. And then as it hits a tone, it hits a certain pattern. It's a little basic at first because it's a little bit lower of a tone, okay? But then as it gets higher of a tone, it then goes, now they're adding more sand because the higher the tone, the more intricate the pattern, then forms another pattern. And as the tone goes, it disrupts the pattern that was there before and then clicks into a new pattern when it hits the right tone. And
Wow.
adding more sand because it gets even more intricate pattern, and then disrupts into a new pattern. But it has to disrupt the old pattern to go into a new pattern. It's not getting rid of sand or anything. It's just reorganizing it around the tone. Okay, and you can
It's
see
a
all
little
this
bit
tone.
like the Outer Limits, Lynn.
I know, right? But like the twilight tone, the twilight zone.
You are now in the
But look
Outer
at these
Limits.
patterns. They're just wild, right?
Yeah, that's really
So,
incredible.
so I'll stop that there. And these patterns, interestingly enough, are found in nature. We see them on tortoise backs. We see them on leaves. We see them in all sorts of patterns in nature when you start looking around. And what you get is this is happening in every littlest particle in everything, in every human, in every animal, in every bit of nature. So there is that, and by the way, I missed saying this really important point, and that is in quantum physics, they said that the smallest particle, the best way they can describe it is like a musical note. It's vibration. That's like musical note. And so we all, in a way, are made of sound, whether you hear it or not, but that vibration. And so if you want to do a metaphor for us in our lives, it's recognizing that it's not about us being a victim of what comes at us or what patterns there. It's about us changing our tone. And as we change our tone, it can organize what is around us. And that doesn't mean it's always going to be successful
Well,
but we
remember,
can,
because it has to break up before it reforms. So
right.
as we become our next version of ourselves, people often are nervous about that, taking that trust step, because it seems like everything's falling apart. Everything is uncertain. And I've likened it to childbirth, like right before a baby's
Oh,
born, there's that
yeah.
transition where there's a lack of clarity in your mind and everything. And then all of a sudden, this creation is very clearly coming forth right after that. But I feel like the birth of an idea or the birth of a new part of ourselves is like that. And so I love that your visual also backed that up.
Right. Or what's, your next phase of your life, the next phase of your business.
Yeah,
I mean, or even just like you think about it, just think how this works too. You never been there where you're at a party and someone walks in the room and you're just either like, oh, is that like there's just something about them. You can't explain it, but you just kind of don't feel
yeah.
like you're just
There's
not
like
feeling
a
it.
vibrational repulsion or
Or then the
attraction.
opposite, or
Yeah,
attraction. They come in the room, like they're just magnetic. You can just feel them, or you feel drawn to them. Or you're
yeah,
sitting in an airport, people watch sometime and just see the tone they're setting by how they show up. And that's actually impacting how people are responding to them. So that also makes sense for when you go into an interview. Don't wait and see how that tone is in the track. You set the tone. You set the tone. And yes, you want to match with their tone to invite them in, but you get to set that tone. And sometimes we want to be so careful or we're afraid that we might get sideswiped. And guess what? That's happened to me in my life. As a kid, it happened to me, later as an adult. And so sometimes our fear of being sideswiped makes us not want to play out all the way because if we go for it all the way, then we might get, hit by a 2x4. And so we can
yeah. It's
hold back.
like, if I can interject there, when we start pulling back to out of nervousness to try to calculate, what's going to happen next, we often mess it up. We often it's that we're changing the vibration. It's not one of confidence and eagerness and willingness and excitement. It's one of nervousness, and that creates a different effect. So if we were to think about those particles, right, how would that configure a nervous energy versus a really flowing energy? So I try to think about
Mm.
that when I'm going to go do something. If I'm a little nervous about it, I try to take the time to meditate or visualize where I'm going so I can get into the right vibration and I don't stale myself. I don't stall it or prevent it with my own, um, I don't know, my own projections of possibly not succeeding. Can you talk about how different ways that people can do that? They can step into the next level of who they're going to be before they've been there.
Right. Well, you did a beautiful job right now of just saying, feeling into it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think what often happens, and I can be so guilty of this, and not reminding ourselves and finding ways that we know will work for us, and everybody's different, to remind yourself so that, if I'm not careful, I will run to worst case scenario. That's the fault. And so I have to catch myself and recognize that that's just my mind, monkey mind, trying to protect me, scared of all the things we talked about.
Yeah.
But then I can catch it and shift it. And we get to shift it in the instant. And if we get to think of it like that tone, that it's shifting the tone, it's not having to do all this hard work and moving all the sand or anything. And by the way, when we say we can shape the world around how we show up or that will have impact by how we show up, we do. But it doesn't mean that we are so in control that at every little specific level, we're going to control because we said it and we think it in our minds. And it's more of setting the tone and that energy of it. And that will organize around it. And maybe not in the way that we would have thought, but it is driving us to eventually what will come from showing up in that tone. So,
Showing
for
up over and over in the tone or in the attitude or
yeah,
in
and
the
so where I
state.
was going for was the tone of the vision, for
Yeah.
instance, for like Wow Maker, which I've held for years, and I've
Yeah.
had two massive, huge bumps along the way with it in its evolutionary process. But as I look back, I get to realize, wow, as I look back and connect the dots, and Steve Jobs talks about you connect the dots looking backwards, and realize what a gift all of that happened because of how it helped shape me in growing and learning, but also they weren't either the right partners, it wasn't the right time, it needed to evolve into what it's now become and where the world is now and how much we, it is it is a gift, but I continued to hold the tone of the vision, and sometimes I didn't. I put it under a rug and did my own thing, but as I came back to it, and so a tone of a vision, a tone of us and who we want. So think about relationships. I'll put this in the form of dating. So there is a gentleman that I feel such resonance with, but he's not quite ready. He recognizes there's a connection with us, but he's still healing a little bit from something from the past, and he's very busy in launching a business and all that. So we're focused on flirty friends in a way, and just allow. I'm really busy anyway, so it's all good. But I would notice in myself if I have my ego want to come up, or my fears, or my worst case scenario default, then I might be careful as I show up and like held back and like, is this okay? Is he going to be all right about this? Or what's
Yeah,
he
you're
thinking about that?
smaller.
Then I'm
You're a
smaller. I'm not
smaller
being,
version of yourself. Yeah.
yeah. And I'm not connecting with him. I'm not, whereas if I go, I am setting the tone of, I love and adore who this person is, no matter whether he's in a shutdown place or he's, um, stressed or whatever, I can just still hold my tone. Not like I'm going to try to force my tone on him. I'm holding it for myself. And that's a big difference too, because sometimes we feel like we got to make other people show up in other ways. It's holding it, allowing them to be how they're going to be. But as I can hold the tone of what I feel with this connection, who I see to be, and not feel like I gotta get an immediate answer or immediate response as to are you going to be this or that or what's he thinking. Let all that go. It'll organize itself. But I
Yeah.
can be in control of how I feel and how I show up. That has me show up so much more connected, has him feel so much better because we get, there's not this weird awkwardness or
Yeah.
something.
And then you are presenting your authentic vibration. So if you're not in alignment, you'll figure that out faster. You'll
Mm,
figure out when you're not when you need to make an adjustment because you're not in the right place faster on an idea, a relationship, a business, anything. When you
beautifully
are, people always say play full out. What does that mean? Play full out. You just run into a
said.
wall. No, it's this is kind of what we're talking about. Playing full out is being at your highest intention, your highest level of intention, and then not letting these other insecurities get in the way so that you're pure in your communication with what you're presenting as yourself. So the vibration on the plate, it's a pure vibration. There's nothing interrupting it. There's no one touching the edge of the plate. There's no apprehension. So the more often we can completely present ourselves, we're going to get the pure thing that we want. If we do present ourselves, we're not quite ready, and we present ourselves with apprehension, we'll probably attract a similar person with a similar sort of an idea. And it could be feedback for us, right? I mean, if you're repeatedly not attracting the scenario in your business, in your relationship, in your life, it's an indicator that you're not tuning to that
That's
level.
right.
So you're
Check the
attracting
tone of
it.
how you're thinking and feeling.
Yeah,
It's like, mhm. Sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
we're in a very interactive universe. So if you're not happy with what you see, it's just a reflection of what you're giving off, right? I
Mhm.
mean, I used to feel people will say I have bad luck. I Things don't happen to me. They'll say things like this, and what it really is, they're not tuned up or they're not quite ready. So they're attracting a version of what they are right now. And I guess the trick we're talking about today, it's not a trick, but could say it's a trick, is that a lot of people say fake it till you'll make it, but really what we're asking you to do is step into where you're going and be of that vibration of where you're going, not where you are, but where you're going. So for you to launch Wow Maker from 10 years ago, you weren't probably ready to launch Wow Maker
Oh,
back then.
no. No.
So you had to project forward and think about, what would I do if I were launching today? What would I do if I was that? And then you start to step into it, right?
Yeah. And or just, I didn't know, but the life lessons that have happened along the way since have really brought me to the place of being ready. But I would also say that to your earlier example, like let's say someone says I'm not lucky, or I have bad luck, or they're frustrated and they're always complaining about stuff, and they're
Yeah.
like actually creating more resistance, more tension. They're
Yeah.
actually not creating flow. And so they need to check their tone, and
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be so difficult or have, compression. And I have to check that for myself too. But a way to do that is being willing to be still for a moment, tune in and just say, what am I feeling? What am I thinking? Because it's almost like you think, what am I thinking? What are the thoughts that are coming? What does that mean? Or what am I feeling? Thoughts am I thinking that are causing that feeling? Whichever way you want to find that for yourself. And then you just be with it. No, don't judge it. That's just, we're all human. We do it. This is all the catching it part. And so you're catching it and you're tuning in, leaning into it. So you can really let yourself look at it. Or lifting up that rug. It ain't going to hide from us. And
Yeah.
then as we can really tune into that, what do I want to think or feel? How do I want to feel? What do I need to think in order to feel that way? So, no, I want to feel powerful. I want to feel in flow. I want to feel excited and celebrating XYZ, whatever. All right. So, what do I want to be thinking, in that way? And so you can even, in a way, start programming your thoughts. And then you choose. You got to choose to think that way. You got to give yourself permission to now think differently. And now think that way. And often we think, "Oh, I can't. I'm just." We almost feel like we're a victim of our thoughts or our feelings. And actually, doesn't mean you don't feel something, like if you have a bad breakup or, some challenge. I mean, we do have to allow ourselves to feel and process. So I'm not saying that, but in general, the feelings that are occurring every day in and out, in and amongst our little bumps and roads, we give ourselves so much more grief and stress than we need to. Do we need to go crazy and stressful over someone cut you off in traffic? Or can you initially, as you go, go, and then turn it into a laugh and an
Yeah.
opportunity to shift? Because
Something,
what good does it do?
yeah. Something interesting for me is years ago, I found myself embedded in some thinking. It was after something happened in my life that was traumatic. And I continued to like almost let it consume most of my daily thoughts.
Hmm.
I couldn't get away from it.
Yeah.
And finally, I mean, it was early on, a friend of mine said, you're going to create a momentum around that you're going to get tangled up. It's going to take your job down. It's going to take other things down with it. And you've got so much going. So she threw an audio at me about momentum.
Oh,
It was a law of attraction. It was a Abraham Hicks
I was gonna say it's Abraham Hicks. Yeah.
audio on your thinking, the power of your thinking. And I couldn't get enough of the audios. I kept listening. So finally, I would catch myself. I tried all sorts of ways to get myself to shift out of this painful feeling. And I just made a choice that whenever I caught myself, I was going to think about something that I liked, something that I enjoyed. And pretty soon I started working myself out of there. And now I have great control over how long it takes me if I'm not in a good place. It doesn't take me very long at all to just decide that I'm going to shift. Now, early on, you can be kind of telling yourself, well, I'm making things up so that I don't think about this thing. But the fact is you can think about anything. It's actually your choice. It took me a while to realize it is our choice what we think about. What do you want to think
Mm-hmm.
about?
Mm-hmm.
And you can play little games with yourself where, I mean, at one point I would say to myself, um, I understand why you've been thinking so much about that. It hurt. Yeah, that's not, I don't blame you for thinking about it, but now what? Now what?
Mm.
So
Yes. Beautiful.
that's a game I like to play. Now what? Okay,
Now
now
what?
what? And it gets faster and faster. Okay, now
Mm.
what?
Mm.
Because we all have stuff. Everybody has stuff that hurts, that didn't work, that you feel like you were victimized. But then you can take your power back by saying, okay, now what? That's fine. Now what? What do I do next?
Yes. Yes. And I have God, it was beautiful. I
Thank
love the
you.
contributions you're adding to it. And to understand that what we believe is what we experience. We are experiencing what we believe, and we actually the cause around us from our belief, which is also like that setting the tone that we said. And to the point of this is scientifically proven, even physically. Like you can get to a point of really understanding how our minds are even operating inside our bodies. So this great study where they took Olympian athletes and they had them hooked up to whatever the EKGs or things around
Yeah.
their heads, and had them play the routine of their Olympic, whatever that's running
Yeah.
or doing the jump,
Yeah.
and their body impulses were responding as if just the same as when they were actually doing it inside. And also, I can even say just a personal experience. This happened, and frankly, I have experienced this more and more, where something happens, and then I use the power of my mind, and I'm able to, in a way, heal myself. And now it takes the more and more power of belief and building that muscle of belief. But at the airport, I went flying and I fell right on my kneecap, going downhill on a hard tile cement. And thankfully, there was an airport person right there that saw that happen that came to help, and they got a wheelchair for me, and I couldn't get up. I couldn't move. It was awful. I thought, oh my God, I don't know if I broke something. I don't know how big this thing's gonna expand. I mean, I could not put any weight on it. It was excruciating pain like I have never felt before. I'm like, oh my God. And even all the things I know about making it go away, I couldn't heal it yet, you know? And then they were like, well, we can get you checked up. And I'm like, no, I got to get my flight and I'll get checked when I get in LA. And so they wheeled me into the airplane and they gave me some ice, and I just then put my hands on it and I just like relaxed. And it was really a lot of pain for like that first 10, 20 minutes. I thought this thing's going to be huge. And they were ready with an ambulance for when I get off the plane, and the, whatever you call them, the paramedics.
Yeah.
They, thank God they let me just get on that plane. It was a short flight, one of those 45-minute flights, something. Um, and they, I then, as we're in the flight, and I was just really just feeling like I really imagine like going through it. I imagine it being well, and I also didn't overwork it to where I'm cycling around it and challenging myself. I just
Yeah.
imagined that and just chose to believe it and let whatever's going to happen happen, but at least just really believing that. They wheeled me off. They then go to, and I'm not really even feeling pain so much anymore. I'm like, okay. But they wheel me off and they go to lift it back, and there's like nothing. There's nothing swollen. There's no bruises. It's like, what were you just trying to get a ride on a wheelchair? They
Yeah.
canceled the ambulance, they canceled everything else. And I did get wheeled out just to be safe, 'cause I'm sure, am I still going to be able to put any weight on this? Got wheeled to the front to where I then walked to an Uber and dragged my luggage and everything else. And it was fine. There was nothing there, nothing the next day, nothing. It was like
I've
nothing
had a
happened.
similar experience where I
Have you?
I was running and I pulled a muscle and I could hardly walk home, and I just decided this could heal today. And I laid down, I iced it, I relaxed, I didn't put pressure on it. I just thought it could just be done already. And the next day there was nothing, nothing. So it's possible.
It's
It's just
possible.
possible. That's how powerful, you know, it speaks to our paradigm. So if you fall or something happens and you decide that usually this happens, 3 weeks of pain, or if you decide that maybe it won't be, maybe it's already done, maybe just today you'll rest. It's just it if you haven't practiced it will sound ridiculous, but it works.
It does
We are
work.
so powerful.
Yeah. And look for the lesson in it too, because I think I'm just, as you were talking, I'm like, you know what? There was another piece that happened. I was like, how could this happen? I wasn't like, because sometimes those little trip ups and stuff will happen because you're tense or you're overthinking something
Or
or
yeah, you're stressed.
whatever's going on. So I'm like, okay, I was feeling in a great mood. I was feeling elevated. I was just thinking about this incredible thing. And then that happened. Now, I could have used that to reinforce just when things are great, a rug's going to be pulled out from under you. And we tend to do that, right? But I said, no, that was for me to pay attention, because what were the thoughts going through my mind was like, oh, I'm okay, but let me go quicker. I'm going to speed up my pace. And then I tripped my basic, what happens, my flip flop. Shouldn't have worn flip flops in an airport,
Yeah.
but the flip
So
flop
you're rushing
caught the wrong
yourself.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then but I thought, okay, it was me rushing, and I didn't need to rush or have tension around that. And maybe this is just a wake up call because on the other side, I got to clear it out and everything was great and realize all the more of the power of the mind and belief.
Yeah.
But I think it is important we look at what is the lesson in there? What do I need to
Yeah.
see?
And what was happening? What were you thinking? What were you experiencing just before that thing that shocked you?
Yeah. And
Because you
right.
can tune up that way. You can really sometimes I'll get a little indicator of what I should do and I ignored that and then something happened. And I think,
Yeah.
why didn't I pay attention? I don't do that anymore. I stop, I listen. Our hunches, our gut feelings, they're messages. They're not there randomly. They're there because they're ripe and ready. So yeah. So what we're talking about right here, we have these complex, interactive relationships with vibration, sound, God, all that is around us. And what we're talking right now is paying attention to those vibrations. And before that, you mentioned that we have the power to set that vibration. So this last example that you gave us is really talking about how you went back. You went back and you made some sense of it, or you decided when there's something that happens that you're not pleased about, you have the opportunity to replay that and decide if it was a good lesson or if it was a tweak that you could make so that you don't have to have it happen again. So, I mean, you
Mhm.
can tune yourself up in that way. Can you talk to
Or
us?
say lesson received. Say lesson
Yeah,
received, and I don't need to have the banged up knee
yeah.
to deepen the lesson. I got the
And thank you
lesson.
for the lesson. Just thank you
Mm-hmm.
for it. So Lynn,
Mm-hmm.
how do you how do you define showing up? Because people talk about it all the time now, but they say you get to show up a certain way. Can you just articulate what in the world does that mean?
Well, I mean, uh, gosh, I guess it is being aware of how you show up. And I mean it just the most direct way in that how we're thinking, how we're feeling, what we're allowing ourselves as we go about our day. And we may not be, and that's maybe, I guess you could call it a heightened awareness, to really allow yourself to tune in as to, are you going around with a lot of tension and then you need to catch that? Because you don't may not even be aware that you're showing up then with a little
Yeah.
bit tense or like, and being
So
transparent. I
yeah,
might have shown up with a little tension at the top of our interview initially, which we
yeah,
diffused. Because
yeah,
again, it's not judging it, it's just shifting in the moment. But
yeah,
I had one of those days where I was running thing the next and the next, and it was really busy and a lot going on. And I was like, I'm so sorry because I was a couple minutes late. And for our time, we said we're going to do this, and you were wonderful and just like diffusing it with such beautiful power energy. Talk about how you showed up. You showed up in a place of caring, connectedness, holding space of this beautiful connected field, if you will, of light and love that we can co-create and step in and invite in all those who are watching. And it was an immediate diffuser to me. Now, it could have matched me at my initial energy that was a little frenetic because I'd run from one thing to the next, and
yeah.
had allowed it to create a little tension. And you didn't. You set the tone by how you showed up, which actually shifted my tone. I actually find,
Immediately. Yeah, and you were open to shifting. So you weren't belligerent
yeah.
about how you came in. You were totally open and you just immediately. So that really revealed to me how you are in touch with being able to shift. So what you're talking about now, Lynn, is when we're talking about showing up, we're really talking about setting an intention for ourselves before we enter situations. There was some writing, this Native American woman, she was an elder, she wrote just cute little things, and I read her columns, and it was about setting an intention in the morning that everything was going to happen in its own perfect time throughout the day, and just meditating on it, praying on it, asking for that. And then she began to explain how her whole day, the series of grace presented itself throughout the whole day, and everything happened in perfect time. And that can happen for us. Some people talk about segment intending.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, I know Abraham Hicks talks about that.
Yeah.
I love that little bit because um, if we're looking at everything going to happen on the day and everything, it can start to feel like a lot of pressures because there's a lot of maybe plates you're spinning, a lot of balls in the air, a lot of responsibilities, a lot of can you manage the time, and your mind's thinking about all sorts of different things. And that creates weeds in your thinking and in your feeling and your being. It doesn't allow space to just be in the moment. And believe me, I know what that feels like, especially when you're like doing a startup or you're doing a big project or like you in the company, you're launching and working with. Um, I just like started going down that road. Now I just took my thought off of where I
Yeah.
was.
So we both talked, and when we first started before the interview today, we were talking about the myriad of things that we're both involved in,
Yeah.
highly, highly engaged, and it can just wipe us out. And so this segment intending is giving us an opportunity,
Segmented.
yeah, to just like take a deep breath before you enter the next part of your day and set an intention, visualize how beautifully it's going to go. I mean, when you're going to have a conversation with someone that might be stressful, you can really put your compassion forth, what your goal is for that conversation. And you can end up, instead of going, sometimes we go in and we're having a disagreement with someone and we're going to go have a conversation. And that's what we're thinking about on the way in, is how much we disagree. And so what I do now is try to think about what my goal for that interaction is, and bringing the love, the patience, you know, everything that's needed to offer, like offering it, like you're bringing a beautiful dish of food, bringing that
Mhm.
in. It makes a big difference.
Hmm. Well, and I think exactly what you said, and that part of segment intending means instead of trying to think of everything and we're going to set this tone all the way throughout, it's like when you think about your goals, you have your little milestones as to this phase and then this phase or this thing and then this thing and like little stepping stones
Yeah.
and they're to the path of your goal. And so you're focused on that first little bit, get there, now the next bit. And so the same thing with your day by going in this next hour of meeting and then just setting the tone for that. And then in the next hour or 3 hours of writing copy or meaning writing an email
Yeah.
and then the next hour of doing your exercise at the gym or whatever, or shopping, or you
Yeah.
can to just segment it, which actually
And
can
we can combine our calendar with that. So, I mean, oftentimes people the night before their day, they set up their calendar. And then, throughout the day, you can jump in at the beginning of those segments and just set an intention there so that you can show up the way that you want to get the kind of result that you want. And it's not manipulative.
no,
It's setting the
no,
intention, and what you're doing is like you're bringing your compassion, your love, you're bringing your personality, your personal qualities to that, instead of getting so busy that you're just doing and you're not being.
yeah.
So as we come to a closure on our interview today, I wondered if you could talk just, for 3 or 4 minutes about Wow Maker. And um, I know that part of your story was that it almost got derailed in a big way. Can you tell us how you have shown up to get this have started 10 years ago, and now it's in a pre-beta, and you have beta testers, and right at in the beginning of next year, you're going to be launching this massive, massive project. So can you talk about how you stayed focused?
Hmm.
Maybe some of the attributes. I know I only give you 3 or 4 minutes, but
Yeah, I will say that I almost feel like that focus is an interesting word for me. I know the value of focus, but I struggle with focus because I try to do several things at once. It's a superpower, and it can also be, disempowering at the same time sometimes.
Yeah.
So I think that was actually part of why it took so long because I was leading a couple of businesses and trying to drive WowMaker, and it just couldn't get the time and focus and energy it needed because it was so big. Now, the two hiccups that happened were two extraordinary opportunities, and it's a long path that I think it would take longer than 4 minutes to get through to tell. The last iteration before what it became now actually was partnering with the gentleman who sold MySpace for $750 million in his tech company and another partner and myself. And right before, 1 week before we were to launch it to millions, and it had come off my connections, which I didn't was why is this MySpace guy not, doing his connections or putting more money, a lot of my money into it too. It was really an interesting thing. But they took it to behind the back of the other partner and me. He and the tech company took it to Ariana Huffington and AOL. They didn't know that they were doing this behind our back, but he took it to them and they said that's $1 billion idea. And then those two guys came back and fought over percentages. I'm willing to just like, what do we got to do to make it work? But my other partner wouldn't budge, and it got stuck in arbitration. And 1 week before it was to launch, and so all I had stopped my businesses for 6 months to put everything into it, put so much money into it, was counting on this, and then it all like crashed and burned, and it was very devastating. It was very hard, but boy, do I bless it because those were the wrong partners. The way that structure was set up, I was getting a super short end of the stick. But even more so, it wouldn't have allowed what this platform has become and the vision that it is. It would have been a very limited little teeny chunk of what this is now. And when it comes to focus, one thing is more conviction and persistence and resiliency. And that's like, even though I might feel like I'm mired in fear or I'm making every possible mistake or I'm getting bumped around or sometimes I'm my own worst enemy because I'm a bottleneck. But you know what? I am clear that I am here for this mission, and one way or another, I'm going to keep taking steps. And even if I get bumped around the process, okay, but it is game on. And one of the things I did a year ago, because of COVID and everything, I went, now's my opportunity, and I'm going to stop all my other business and go all in with WowMaker. And I was doing it at a high level, performing at a high level, speaking for corporate events at a high level, consulting. But I stopped all that. Now, what's interesting, here it is a year later, WowMaker's about to take off, and some other major opportunities came in that I went, well, I'm not saying no to that. But I wasn't pursuing them. They fell in my lap, consulting a major media company showed up, and I just had to take that opportunity. Could form alliances
I
with a
mean,
WowMaker client.
sometimes we get tested if we will continue to be distracted or if we can do both things at once. But I just wanted to throw that in there because sometimes I have had uh, right before I'm ready to come to fruition on something, some really cool thing that
Mm.
comes to distract. So I'm not saying your thing is a distraction. I'm just saying that it's part of this whole creative process is that we're kind of being asked throughout, how serious are you? So when you got derailed almost by this last deal that you just mentioned, you talked about taking steps, taking
You
action.
mean the MySpace deal when you say the last deal
Yeah, yeah,
derailed?
yeah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people would have just quit right there.
Mm.
So you kind of restructured the word vision, and you
Mm.
you course corrected it into actually action,
Mm.
which I really like. A lot of people have said that when they've gotten more singular in their vision, that's when they really succeeded.
Hmm.
I mean, multiple speakers here have talked about that.
Hmm.
And then multiple speakers have talked about how you just need to keep taking steps. We're often not sure what the next thing is, but we know what the very next thing is. I mean, we know what the baby step is. So it sounds like you just continued to do what you could because you were so focused on what was going to happen here.
I was just committed, and I mean, I was flawed in how but I learned, and then I would take that lesson and learn and grow, and course correct and course correct and course
Yeah.
correct. And that's another thing is let yourself make mistakes. That's how you're going to go and grow. And you might even think you know the next step and you take that next step and that was the wrong next step. But then that wrong next step shows you the next step to try, and which
Yeah,
also might be the wrong next step, but then we'll show you the next step to try until
so
finally it
true.
clicks and you
Yeah,
get the right steps.
yeah,
And by the way, I just want to also address that, the there was two major things. One was doing this big arena performance, opening for Train and all this, which my heart and soul loves. And that was not a distraction. Yes, it took me off time wise for Wowmaker. But what it also did was bring back that piece of me that had been shut down for a year and a half in COVID
yeah,
with no singing or performing and energy moving,
yeah.
and also reminding me of that core of who I am, that I need to bring that same energy, not just to an arena stage and performing, but also into the creation and birth of Wowmaker. And then in
That's
this
great.
consulting to the media company was showing me, yeah, you play at a high level and you deserve to be in this level, and also even working with them. They're normal people like you and me, even though they're running this brand name media company that I won't say their name right now, just to, I probably could,
Yeah,
but I mean, just to be safe. So, and that also served for Wowmaker. So sometimes,
that's
we
a
don't want to be so
fabulous.
rigid in our
Yeah,
focus.
I
So,
want to reiterate that because it's so fabulous. The fact that sometimes you get working so rigorously on something that you cut out some of the very things that make you who you are. For me, I can get so rigorous, I don't get into my studio here to get working. And when I am working, it inspires everything. So I'm glad you brought that up, Lynn. That was just brilliant, fabulous. A lot of times
mm,
people cut out some of the things that give them the really flowing joy and inspiration. So that's just a really important part of creating is giving your spirit that place to play, no matter how rigorous you're getting. So Lynn, as we
yeah.
wrap up now, how can we connect with Wowmaker? I know we have links for you here in your bio, but
Okay.
do you want to let people know how they could maybe partake of Wowmaker?
Yeah. So wowmakernow.com, Wowmaker now, not tomorrow or the next day, but now. So wowmakernow.com is the holding page. And that if you just go there, you can check it out there. You can also give your name and email. We'd love that to get you pre-loaded and ready for the community once we open, and you'll then be notified. That would be wonderful. Also, my site, lynnrose.com, my name.
I lived inside a shell, locked myself away. I hid from all the life waiting there for me. I couldn't face the pain. Every day went on the same. Now I have to take a chance, trust in what could be. I wanna break wide open. Ooh, my heart is breaking open. Ooh, let go. I'm ready to live my life deep and into the unknown. You never know till you try. Ready, we're going for gold. Got to fall and go. Reach where you dare to go. Taking the chance to live on the other side of pain. The story is the same, but now we can change the past, play a different game. It frees you from the chains when all of you's embraced. And now all that will remain is who you're meant to be. Let your heart break open. Ooh, your heart is breaking open. Oh, 5, 4, 3, 2, let go. I'm ready
Oh my gosh, that's such a great song. I've heard it before, but it's what we're talking about. We're talking
Yeah.
about, taking the risk and living the life that you came here for and not playing small. So what a gift. And did you write that, Lynn?
Yes, yes, I wrote it with the Coen brothers, and
So
it's out of what
beautiful.
we talked about, out of
So
past
beautiful. Yeah.
experience, out of everything we're talking about.
Yeah.
And
Thanks for ending with that. That's just a fabulous song. It's I don't know, it's the motto of the day right now, really.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your talent with us, that beautiful song, your voice, and all the things that you've learned on your journey as a creator, and
hmm,
how to be present, and um, how to be instead of just do, how to show up.
hmm.
Thank you, Lynn Rose.
Thank you, Anne. Wow, you're such a beautiful being, and you lit up my life today, even just in this little interview. So I can only imagine with all the interviews and being in your energy. So thank you for who you are in my life, for the world, and for you guys.
You're welcome.
Take that chance to live.